Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jill Shayan, and I am the founder and managing partner of Empire Charter Consultants, a national charter school services group. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to Josh Miller from Remarkable Academic Foods. And if I had like the cheering Josh, this is where I would enter that. Josh, first, I want to say to people who watch us, Empire Charter Consultants does not take a fee or a percentage from vendors, and we don't take vendor money. We do ask that our vendors provide a service to schools in lieu of us taking money. So remember, please feel free to call our vendors at any time. Josh, tell us a little bit about your company and tell us first about you personally, how you got here. Tell us about your company and what made you launch it.
Yeah, so first for me, it starts way back, believe it or not, when I was 8 years old. So I watched my grandmother make scrambled eggs like countless times. For some reason, I had like this super fascination with breakfast. Like I had to watch her. And first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm sorry I segued right into the question, but
I want you to segue. I'm thrilled to have you.
thank you for having me on. And but so I watched her do it dozens of times. I would fake sick so I could stay home and have her breakfast. She came over like it was her job every day. And Monday through Friday, she took care of the house for the family and all the meals. And then unfortunately, she had a major stroke one day and she couldn't cook again. But that weekend that it happened, I asked my mom, "Can I go make scrambled eggs?" Like I watched her do. She said, "Yeah." Went in, I started making it, got the cast iron skillet out, I'm making it cooking. She comes in to check on me, and I look up at her. I want to be a chef, and it never changed. My heart was set on this industry from that moment on. So
That's so beautiful. Sad, but
they,
beautiful. You
yeah,
remember exactly when it was. How were the eggs?
they were good. They were just like grandma made them. And so, I mean, that's where it took off, and I stuck with that mission through all through the years. My family thought, oh, first it was a lawyer, then it was a doctor, then it was a cop. It will change, and it never changed. And so, getting into my industry, I got lucky. I didn't have to pick and choose. Like I knew right out of high school. I graduated high school. 2 weeks later, I was in culinary school in a different state full time. And I was doing that, and at first I thought I was going to be in high-end restaurants. I was hooked on that, and I was in a really good one in Pittsburgh. And unfortunately, loans kicked in, and you start seeing how much money you're making, and a shift had to happen. And I got recruited at the time to collegiate dining. So I got on the college campus. I saw what they were doing. I was like, wait, you're doing scratch cooking here. This is not like they're making stocks, they're making their own sauces, their pizza doughs, and I tried it out, and I kept going down that path, and eventually I ended up I was with the same company for 11 years, and I became a culinary director for them in my last position. So I traveled full time across all the divisions, and I just helped assess programs and make roadmap solutions for them essentially, help elevate the programs that weren't elevating at the or working at the rate that we needed them to work at. So that's how I got into it, and I decided to break off and start this company towards the end of last summer. Believe it or not, one for no company bounds. Right, I'm a solution go-getter. I don't like to. I don't see the point in having 12 different approvals that need to go through for something that's very small amount of money that's going to make an instant impact to the team or to the students. Like we see the solution, let's get after it. And you can't get that in a corporate setting at all. And another aspect for me is actually being passionate about doing this is looking back at my childhood lunches. So I actually went to private school, private Christian school through eighth grade. And in junior high, they switched locations, and both locations, both buildings, they had a kitchen, but they gave us fast food every day. I had more Arby's roast beef sandwiches than I care to ever tell you. Burger King, I think, was another day of the week. A local fried chicken place that gave us chicken nuggets from. That was lunch. That was lunch, and they had a kitchen. They needed to make a little bit of investment to do a program, but they never did. And then I went to high school, public high school, and part of the National School Lunch Program. and it was just bare bones. Yeah, I don't think I saw much of any fresh fruits or vegetables. It was either canned and frozen pretty much all the time. And there's nothing wrong. They have their places, but to not have exposure to that as a young child in school, I realized as an adult that that had an impact on me. And so helping schools that see that and they want to go into that stage to elevate their programs, I absolutely want to be a part of the solution, because if you're not a part of it, you're a part of the problem. So yeah, it's definitely
True.
a passion for me, and that's how things started off. And it is consulting and training. I can get more into that later, but I also have a podcast. It's called the 5 and 20 podcast. It's revolved around five or so questions in 20 something minutes, and I bring on a different guest for each episode. It's bringing in different subject matter experts, everything from sustainability to equipment to the food itself. All those things we're covering in there. So that's how things got started and where we are today.
So one, that's tremendous. And I want to say, when you grow up, for me, and you're a free and reduced lunch student, or right, or it's the reduced lunch, and you see what the
Mm.
lunches are. As a young kid, I mean, I'm going to be 60, right? So it still resonates with me, horrible lunches. And then when I got into the charter school world, there was a school that has since shut down. They had a chef, a personal chef for their, I think there were 350 students.
Mm.
And every day there was a new vegetable or fruit or new dish. And if you tried it, he had stickers made that said, I was brave and tried asparagus today, or Brussels sprouts with balsamic vinegar. And he would come out and talk to the kids. But what you're saying resonates, because I never saw fresh fruit or vegetables in school lunches.
Yep.
Maybe an apple, and the apples are all smashed up, like somebody didn't care. They were giving them to somebody. And
Yep.
I do remember thinking, wow, like this is the only choice for some families. And as an adult, when I go into schools and I see some of these lunches, I'm constantly saying, how are we trying to make this better? And the answer is, oh, we give kids more snacks during the day, but the snacks are not like diced apples or fruit, or sometimes they're fruit cups, but mostly they're crackers and sugary food, but the kids are also used to it.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it's an important conversation. More and more frequently, we are hearing from schools to talk about their lunch programs. And right, they're like, oh, we get it from the district, it's fine. But it's really not fine, right?
Yeah.
These are not fine things.
Yeah.
So talk to me about how you believe your company can help charter schools, not just in New York State. We work in lots of states. Our focus is always New York State because we are New Yorkers. Tell us how you would like to help charter schools.
Yeah, so there's a few different ways to help, and going back to what you were just saying, students, they know good food. The palates have been changing not only for the adults but even for the students. They're watching the cooking shows too, and the parents are bringing in different flavors into the home now more and more, and they know good food from not so good. So. But in terms of how I can help, there's a few different ways. Obviously, you have the traditional consulting pathway. Now, depending on the school itself, depending on if they contract the food service to be done by a vendor or if they're doing it themselves, there's different paths and how I can help. But always there's some form of assessing the program. So two things about me: I'm actually a certified professional in food safety, and I am also a certified aller trainer by Menu Trinfo. I am a strong believer that great food is great, but if it's not safe, then what does it matter, right? And it's not just safety for the food itself and making sure that the students are eating safe food, but also the team that is putting it together. It's food and workplace safety, right? We have to make sure we're taking care of the people that are showing up every day to prepare these foods. And so going in and being able to help with that, whether it's audits, things, setting yourself up to where the team there can do internal checklists to make sure that they're checking all the right boxes and doing that stuff properly is huge. And in terms of the food execution side, if they are self-operated, especially looking at the menus and the recipes, that's half the battle. And they might not have that to begin with. So that's one big obstacle that is in the way of being able to make improvements to their program. And believe it or not, there's companies that are that have software that have recipes plugged in that are part of the National School Lunch Program. Following the right meal patterns and everything, they will actually give you recipes to start you off, and you can add more scratch or speed scratch cooking methods if you or recipes to those databases as well. So being able to help them with that is a strong start. Again, if they are contracted out, I can't go in and start changing their recipes. That's a different path. But if they are self-operated, some other ways that we can help is making sure that they're taking advantage of grant opportunities and making sure that they're part of what they call GPLs, group purchasing organizations, where they're actually able to get some rebates on the food that they're going to purchase anyways. So if you're buying the food, why not get rebates that really don't cost you anything, and now you're able to reinvest more money back into your program for better quality food, better equipment, taking care of your team, all that kind of stuff. And then we can dive into the sustainability aspect, the allergy accommodations, engagement. What you just said with the stickers is part of engagement. It's not just come in, single file line, serve them and go. It's what are we doing to help engage with the students with the food as a vehicle for that, right? How can we help change their perception and the relationship with food? And those engagement opportunities like that and so many more is a big, really good way to help increase that. Even if it's like a little cooking show and tell kind of a thing, introducing them to different flavors, different foods. That's huge for any successful program, and totally changes their perspective of the food program when they get to know the people behind it as well. So that's definitely some of the ways. And then if you're contracted, there's the equipment and the design aspect of things.
Right.
So you have equipment. If you don't know food service equipment, it's a different language. Just like I don't know academics, I'm not going to go into a school and try to tell them how to teach, but I do know food service equipment well. And let's look at what the state of it is today, and let's put out a plan, whether it's 5 years, whether it's 3 years, whatever it is. Let's really get the pulse of what it is today, making sure that preventative maintenance is happening, and making sure that we can apply for some of those equipment grants. It segues naturally into that because now we know what we're applying for with the grants. We have a plan of action of this is why we need this piece of equipment to help expand our menu offerings, to help replace a piece of equipment that we're dumping a lot of money into, and making sure that it's the right powerful piece of equipment, not too powerful, not weak enough to where you're watching water boil, because
Right.
they make equipment for all different sizes of operations, and I can help them get a pulse on that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Is there a way to change the mindset of schools, these charter schools, who say it's easier for us to just get the lunches from the district rather than them maybe considering taking that money and finding a vendor that might be able to provide the foods that we really want the students to have and not lunches that we're unhappy with? And I know but you can't just change somebody's mind, but
Yeah.
how could we? If we could actually have a conversation with somebody to say, it's not always the district lunches that you're bringing in, there are other options. Can you help talk that through with schools?
Yeah, and it's not for everyone. You definitely have to want to be willing to get some skin in the game to go that route. But the benefit is traditionally your program is going to outshine the programs when you're self-operated and you're owning that food program yourself. Those when you're using it outside, when you're using the school district mills and when you're using an outside vendor, they are built for efficiency, and that's really towards the top of their mind, not as much on the quality aspect of the program, because they have to do it for all operations, right? Each school, each kitchen is different, and there's going to be different strengths within each building and with each school system. So let's start by having the conversation of looking at those spaces and what kind of management structures are going to take to make the program run just like you just said. So it's definitely something that is worth the conversation. of at least just saying, hey, if we went this route, what would it take? And helping them open up those possibilities to them. I'm not gonna sit up here and say, all right, let's start the clock. You want to have a conversation with me? This is how much it's gonna cost. Let's reach out. Absolutely, let's have those conversations. Let's talk through those tough questions, because there's no one size fits all, and there's no one roadmap to getting there. But it is absolutely possible, and the benefits far outweigh, in my opinion, the risk of not doing it.
I think so too. You always hear when students love their school lunches. That's how I know when a school has their actual own cafeteria, because there's something, and it's normal, by the way, it's normally something like they made Rice Krispie treats, right? But
Yeah.
the lunch is still standard. It's like a very, very basic lunch. I
Hmm.
think it is time for schools to really look at their food programs and their offerings. I would tell you, every school I've been in, probably in the last 18 months, there have been some concerns about the school lunches.
Yeah.
And I mean, the kids who are entitled for free and reduced lunch don't get it because the lunch is so bad. And
Yeah.
that's really, how are we helping students?
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
half the battle. I mean, really, so there are other consultants, there are organizations where they'll come in and they'll work with the team very hands-on, side by side, and help them out. Um, I am more of a long-term, let's try to get you the right solutions, and I'll stick with you more long-term. I don't want to come in and in 3 months I'm out and leave it up to you, because what happens? There's turnover, there's the game of telephone, things get lost in translation, and all of a sudden your program is back to zero. So really helping them become independent and having the right solutions is one thing I'm a proponent on. One aspect that I can help with if they are owning their food service is with training. I actually partner with a food service tech company. Believe it or not, I never thought I would have said this in my lifetime, but there is a company, and they actually started at the time in senior living, and they've made it to where training videos are easily accessible for the food service workforce.
That's a
And
great idea.
so it's everything from how to dice an onion to how to take care of your piece of equipment. Right. So again, giving them the solutions, and it's a very cost-effective, innovative way to add that to your program. So I'm all about setting them up for success to be self-sufficient, because that's what I did in my culinary director role. I went from account to account, flights to driving all over the place, and it was very, very heavily dependent on me. And what happened when I drove away? Right? Things went quickly right back downhill because the systems weren't being put in place to really set them up for success.
It's such an important conversation.
Yeah.
So how can your company change how schools provide service for their students? Because ultimately, we are about how does this benefit students?
Yeah.
Talk to us a little
Absolutely.
bit about that.
Yeah. So, well, let's start with the fact that some don't even have a kitchen. So that is one thing that we can look into. There's a company that is, they've literally, they own this part of this innovation, if you may, of being able to provide kitchens. They're building them. It can be in a shipping container, or they actually build modular units, and it can be right next to your building. It can actually be connected to the building if you wanted to for a permanent solution. And they have tons of flexible options in terms of being able to expand or add a kitchen to a building. And that to me is a complete game changer, because that's half the battle, I feel like, especially if you don't have the right kitchen, or if you don't have any at all. And it doesn't have to be, we're going to double the footprint of the building. Let's say that you have the space for prepping, but you don't have the space for the equipment. Right. So just getting a cooking module in itself is probably going to be a lot more efficient than trying to add cooking equipment to an existing space, especially when you talk ventilation and going through different levels to get to the roof. Like that gets very, very expensive quickly. And people usually, as soon as they see that number, they're like, no, just for one aspect of a kitchen, we can't do that. So, looking into that option is definitely one, and they can even set it up to where it's covered spaces between the cooking or prep module in the building, right? So when they're carting ingredients or prepared foods back and forth, they're not exposed to the rain and the snow, right? So The very innovative solution that they have there. So that it's definitely worth a conversation with that. Outside of that, I mean, I've worked in colleges, and the cool thing that I've seen over the years, because the company I work for, they also did some K-12. And what's interesting is seeing how college dining operates and seeing the way that they change, because they probably change the fastest out of all the other segments of the industry. They have to keep the students engaged during those prime years where food is such an important aspect to what deciding which school to go to, that they're constantly changing their food program every couple of years. They're doing something significant, if not every year. And slowly but surely things trickle down into K-12 space as well. Those same exact trends. So being able to see how far ahead they are and seeing how those can be implemented into the K-12 space, I think is going to help charter schools tremendously, because it's not just I've seen the average Joe and I'm going to come in and make you an average Joe. It's no, I've seen the top of the top tiers, and I can help you if it's getting there or if it's getting halfway there, whatever it is, I can help them, because I bring that perspective to the game for sure. And then lastly but not least, it's helping them with a roadmap. So we talked about those different things that I can do. I don't believe I'm a silver bullet for any one program. I'm one person, and I'm huge on collaboration with other organizations and other individuals. So if it's just as simple as giving a roadmap, a strategic plan, this is what you want your program to be in a few years. Let's talk about that. Let's look at what it is today, and let's talk about what it's going to take to get there. That's something I'm absolutely open to having a conversation about as well, because at the same time, doing those things, those one-offs is great, but what's the end goal? Why are we doing this one thing and the other and the other? What are we really trying to achieve at the end?
I would say as schools audit themselves all the time, they rarely, except for financially, audit their food program. They never
Mm.
ask parents, are you happy with the school lunches? Because everybody knows what the answer is going to be. The answer is no. And it's disappointing when little kids hand you their lunch and they're like, yeah, no, thanks. I'm going to wait till snack time.
Yeah.
So Josh, tell us where we can find you on Facebook, LinkedIn, and a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so you can find my company, Remarkable Academic Foods. The website is rfoodsolutions.com, the letter R, foodsolutions.com with an S at the end. And you can find me on LinkedIn. If you just type in Joshua Miller, and I make it really easy because there's tons of Joshua Millers out there, believe it or not. So if you type in Joshua Miller and then CP -FS. If you start typing that in, my name will immediately pop up. That's for Certified Professional Food Safety. So I have those credentials at the end of my name to make it really easy to find me there. And my podcast is the 5 and 20 podcast, as I was saying earlier. That is anywhere you listen. It is on YouTube. I do announce it on LinkedIn every time I release an episode, but most of the listeners are going to those popular places: Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. They're usually going to those streaming platforms to listen to those episodes. So the videos are available on YouTube as well. If you start typing in 5 in 20, so the number 5 in the number 20 podcast by Remarkable Academic Foods, you will find those episodes there. We launch an episode usually about every 2 weeks. So again, focusing on what the other parts of the industry, the other subject matter experts are able to add insights to school food service for everyone.
And are you on Facebook?
I'm not on Facebook. I've never had one. I
Everyone's
created an
on
account
it.
like 20 years ago, and I logged in once and never back in again.
Facebook and Twitter, but this will be posted on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Josh, I want to tell you a funny story. My son went to the college you used to work in and would come home at the end of the week starving. This was long before you were there. My son's 40 or will be 40.
Yeah.
So he hated the food so much that they would walk to the Italian store on Route 9 and they
I
would
know
all get
exactly what you're
food. They'd
talking about.
order pizza, but we had to pay for the food package because he lived on campus. And now
Yep.
when like they see your food pictures or for when you were there, they'd be like, we didn't have that food when we were there. We didn't. We didn't have that food. So it just
Yeah,
makes me laugh that I'm very sorry that you didn't get to feed my child.
yeah,
What
that
a-
that makes me. I wish I could have too.
He used to come home on the weekends. I don't know why he lived on campus. We only lived an hour from the school. And load up his car with all of our leftovers to bring them back to put in his
Oh
refrigerator.
my goodness.
Yeah, so I wish you were around sooner.
Yeah, you're double paying for food at that point.
So when we post this, everyone, we will post the links to his podcast, to his LinkedIn page. We hope you follow. We hope you call. We will put Josh's contact information. But Josh, thank you so much for speaking with me today. I know I did it last moment, but everybody keeps complaining about food, and now let's give them a solution. So
I'm
thank you.
always happy to talk. Thank you again for having me, and feel free to reach out anyone if you ever want to start a conversation.
Thanks so much.